President Trump said he is considering a GOP midterm convention, a move that House Speaker Mike Johnson appears to be in support of. Johnson telling Punchbowl's Jake Sherman he thinks the gathering is, quote, a done deal. The Democratic National Committee, for what it's worth, is also considering holding a convention of its own ahead of the midterms because, honestly, we just don't have enough conventions in our country. I mean, honestly, everyone knows that. I want to bring in our panel. Daniella Diaz is a reporter for NOTUS. Remember, that's News of the U.S., and Sabrina Rodriguez reports for the Washington Post. I've been told, ladies, I need to speak very loudly because we might have some mic issues in D.C. I'm a long way away in New York. So give me your assessment. Do we need midterm conventions? What?
I personally think, Major, and by the way, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great.
Great to be on with you. This is who Donald Trump is. It's completely characteristic of him to want to have a sort of rally halfway through his residency, get the base motivated, remind them that they are very energized about his presidency, and he needs that reminder as well. I mean, it's not that surprising to me that this is something that he's considering. Of course, the politics reporter probably has a better opinion about this, Sabrina Rodriguez.
Sabrina, take it away.
I think, right, that Daniella said it perfectly. Trump wants to remain the center of the show. So by him having a convention for the midterms, he gets to, his name will not be on the ballot next November, but this is his way of still continuing to weigh in and him still trying to exert that power and influence over the Republican Party, which we know he wants to do even if he is not president, 4 years from now.
Today was a day when survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell sought some manner of either closure, transparency, or accountability. And in some respects, all three of those things. Evaluate what transpired today. Daniella?
Right, Major. I was actually on Capitol Hill the last 2 days. They just came back to session. It's really interesting because when I talked to all these Republicans right before this August recess, when they went back to work in their districts, of course, they were saying that they were going to let the air out of the balloon on this Epstein issue now that they were not going to be in session anymore. That's clearly not what happened at all, Major. As you're seeing on the screen right now, these were the protests and the people outside the Capitol who were obviously incredibly motivated and trying to remind lawmakers that they want to see those so-called Epstein files that Republicans largely do not want to release. Thomas Massie, of course, has a couple of conservatives on his side for this so-called discharge petition that would force a vote to release the Epstein files. But he needs a handful, and he does not have enough Republicans. And I also reported last night that the White House is actually whipping against having Republicans sign on to this measure. They don't want to motivate Republicans to vote on this effort to release the files. And they're calling this a, quote, Democratic hoax, as we've heard from Donald Trump saying that as well when he's been asked about it by reporters. So this is continuing to be a major issue that's not going away.
And Sabrina, Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene has said the White House shouldn't get involved in this. They're trying to do something to help the president on this issue.
Absolutely, Major. I mean, what we're seeing is sort of this division and splintering within the Republican Party, within Republicans on Capitol Hill. Some of the president's staunchest supporters have said, okay, let us take the heat off the White House and let us try and handle this or us talk this through. And I think we've seen that by bringing some of Epstein's victims onto Capitol Hill, taking it away, taking the conversation away from the White House and taking it to Capitol Hill. But there is still disagreements over how to move forward. And I think you see that for, a month ago, the president was really trying to move on. And I think they've accepted that, poll after poll showed Americans are united in wanting answers to this. And one way or another, people want to see it happen.
Daniella, we all called it the big, beautiful bill. That's the legislative language in the text, for goodness sake. Now they want to rebrand it as the Working Families Tax Cut Act. Let's listen to the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, on this.
It's not a rebranding, and what we have to do to sell it is tell the truth, and that's the beauty of it, okay? So I'm not surprised that some of the early polling was less than favorable in some areas of the country because there has been a full-on strategy by, frankly, the mainstream media and the Democrats, of course, to try to misrepresent what's in the bill. If you look at the polls of all the individual provisions of the bill, they're wildly popular.
It's not a rebranding. Sure sounds like it, though.
It sure sounds like it. And while I was talking to Republicans earlier today after this meeting, Major, and a lot of them say, look, we know that this One Big Beautiful Bill has been marketed, especially by Democrats, as a massive cut on Medicaid. And that is what Americans believe about this bill. Poll after poll shows that this is not a popular bill with voters. And that is why you're seeing Republicans rebrand this as the working families tax bill. And so it's interesting to see how they're going to actually take this out when we've heard the president for months talk about this as the one big beautiful bill. And this is exactly what Democrats were hoping for. I also spoke to Democrats about this on Capitol Hill earlier today, Major, and they were, of course, saying this is what we expected. We knew this was going to happen. This is a bill that is not helping voters, and they are feeling that the messaging from Democrats during this August recess is working.
And Sabrina, we got about 90 seconds. You get to run as far as you want on this. My experience is when a White House is trying to build a new political messaging campaign, especially in the summertime, it gives them new talking points before the August recess, not when they've gotten back and we're peddling the old message all during the month of August. But that's where they are.
Absolutely, Major. I think it says a lot, though, that we did not see as many town halls coming together from Republicans. You know, Republican lawmakers in the August recess largely shied away from holding those town halls. It was just something so typical for them to be doing when they're home for recess. And the few that did take place across the country were met with a lot of backlash, were met with a lot of constituents coming and expressing frustration. And to Daniella's point, I mean, the branding for months around this bill, the president can come out and say a million times one big beautiful bill, but Democrats, their messaging was pretty relentless on the Medicaid cuts, on the cuts to food stamps, and that is what a lot of the defining, conversation around the bill has been so far. I think interesting too is in the last couple of weeks, seeing Vice President J.D. Vance come out and him sort of be the one to start talking about the working families tax cut, and him trying to, start that messaging so that he could sort of tee it off for Republicans. But I think it'll be interesting to see in the months to come, when people are actually out talking to constituents, how much that lands, and especially when the effects of these policies actually take effect and start hitting people.
Right. What you call it is one thing. How people absorb it in their actual lived economic lives is the key. Daniella Diaz and Sabrina Rodriguez, as always, thank you so very much.